Moonpig.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Moonpig Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Ariella, and today I'm joined by fellow co host, Rob.
Hello.
And today we're diving into the world of product design and exploring how to build a truly user-centric mindset. Joining us is Ben, Director of Design here at Moonpig. So, Ben, welcome to the podcast. Please, could you start by telling us a bit about yourself and your role here at Moonpig?
Hello. Good afternoon. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. So yeah, I'm Ben. I'm Director of Product Design at Moonpig. I've been in Moonpig about 2.5 years now, actually, and been helping grow our design team and encourage a more user-centric approach to product development across the entire organization is the ambition. Um, so yeah, and that's my background has been product design for the last sort of 15 years or so. So I'm showing my age a bit there.
Awesome, thanks, Ben. So product design can mean a lot of different things to different people. How would you define product design and what does it really mean in the context of your work at Moonpig?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I mean, I come from a background of, back at school doing physical product design, which actually now doesn't seem too different in many ways, trying to understand sort of a customer problem and solve it as quickly and creatively as you can. But yeah, digital product design, very similar in many ways. And if, simply put, it's the process of truly deeply understanding the core need of your user or users and then building and testing products or services that solve those needs and ultimately in a way that drives tangible business outcome. And kind of the way that I simplify that sort of gobbledygook, if you like, is it's building stuff people actually want to use and get meaningful value from that drives business value. And I guess as a product design function, the core value we bring, besides many people think that perhaps as a designer, your output is only in the visual artifacts that you produce, the interface design that you do. I'd say the actual real tangible value that we bring as a team is truly understanding our customers, like researching and having empathy for what they're trying to achieve, and then making sure we communicate that across the business, helping others walk in our customers' shoes, understand the challenges they face and the problems that we need to help them solve. Like that's why customers come and shop with Moonpig. They've got a problem or a need, and we need to be able to serve that or solve that in the most efficient and delightful way possible. And I guess another quite nice analogy that I use, which is quite helpful, is a big part of it is about risk reduction. So if you think, anyone can have an idea of a way to solve a customer problem or build an awesome thing for a user. And many times those are great ideas, but actually what we can do is help understand what the right solution is as quickly as possible. So it could be how do we get from a really complex problem to a really effective solution incredibly quickly so that we don't spend a whole year trying different things that just don't work? Or how do we prevent a company from creating a thing that actually harms the customer experience and does more damage than good? So yeah, those are probably the parts of product design that I enjoy the most, like really understanding customer problems and solving them in ways that actually drive a meaningful impact. And I guess we work incredibly collaboratively as well. So, through everything I've just described, naturally we have to work with lots of people around the business. We have to work with our commercial teams, our marketing teams, even operations at companies like Moonpig, getting the card to the recipient's doorstep and designing that whole experience together. And that's yeah, what really excites me about the role. So there are probably a couple of examples that I love that really help bring to life the breadth of sort of product design approach. And I'll use a couple of examples that aren't Moonpig related, just to bring this to life. So one of them on a very simple scale is, has anyone ever tried opening one of those doors where it looks like it's got a pull handle on it, but it's actually a push door, and you've kind of gone up to it and tried to pull it towards you and then realized that, oh, it doesn't work. You look like an idiot, and then you have to push the door to open. That's a great example of, where a product design process hasn't been followed. If you were just to sit and observe, users use that door, it wouldn't take you particularly long to realize that the handle is making customers feel like they've got to pull the door rather than push the door to open it. Um, and that saves money as well. Not only does it stop frustration for door openers, but it also will reduce cost on, repair costs for the doors where the handles break after people are yanking them off the hinges or what have you. So, I saw that very example in an office I used to work at a previous job where the handle actually broke because too many people tried to pull the door to open it rather than push. So the simple solution of just observing customers use the door would have helped you design a better product incredibly quickly. On the other end of the scale, slightly more complex problem is a great example about the design of the MRI scanner, absolutely amazing piece of technology. It was designed actually by a guy, an industrial engineer called Doug Dietz. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly, who, yeah, was an industrial designer for General Electric. And he spent, 2.5 years designing this scanner, absolute amazing piece of technology. And it was sort of rolled out into some hospitals, and he was thrilled. You know, he recalls going into a hospital once for the first time to see it actually being used. And the first patient he encountered using it was actually a small child. And this small child was in floods of tears, scared stiff to use this incredibly scary looking contraption, right? As we can all imagine, it's very understandable. And he actually found out that 80% of people at this moment in time had to be sedated to use an MRI scanner. It was that daunting. So he obviously left in tears, he describes, he was absolutely gutted that the thing he'd spent all that time creating didn't solve the problem that he wanted it to have solved. So what did he do? He actually spent the next few months speaking to kids to understand how to make the experience of being scanned by an MRI machine something that they actually look forward to doing. And he went so far as not just to think about the scanner itself, but to think about the whole experience. And that's what's really important about product design. It's the whole service of going through that experience. So he talks about, beforehand, before the kid had this scan, they were sent a pre-flight pack in the post. You can imagine they're on a mission going out of space was how it was sort of themed. And they were sent like a flight pack in the post about their upcoming mission in space. And then when they came to the hospital, the nurses and doctors weren't in their white uniforms. They were in, characterized as they were like, flying into space with them. And then the actual MRI machine itself was decorated with stickers, and the room itself looked like it was, somewhere at NASA. And it was incredible. It was made into this whole experience that thought about not just the product, but what the people wore, the stuff you were sent in the post beforehand, the language, everything. Because what they did is they really zoomed into the needs of that user and really got to understand how they felt and what they needed and what they were concerned about. And it was an amazing example of, to the extreme of how being user-centric can impact and influence so much of an experience that you would never have otherwise even thought about. And for me, that's yeah, why I love product design and why I think it can sometimes provide some really lateral solutions to problems that otherwise wouldn't have been thought about.
So, what kind of things are we currently focusing on to do that?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Rob. And there's, every organization is very different and has different ways that they can drive a more user-centric culture within their organization. Um, and ultimately, like what I've said, is that you have to center the user in every decision that's made in a business. And very fortunately, at Moonpig, we do that incredibly well already. So, there's places that I've worked in the past where you're starting at sort of level zero, trying to embed a user-centric approach and a user-centric mindset in a business, which arguably is a lot easier than coming into a business like Moonpig that's already incredibly mature and experienced at thinking from a user-centric point of view and trying to take them to the next level and the next level. And that's what we've been trying to do at Moonpig over the 2.5 years that I've been here. So a lot of that actually for us is how we support teams outside of product data and tech to think from user-centric perspective as well. And it's very much our language every day inside the product and tech teams for how we use user archetypes and how we speak to customers on a daily basis, but actually making more of that tooling and frameworks available for our counterparts in marketing and commercial or even operations is really important. And equally doing things like rapid ideation and rapid user testing with users is something that, other teams aren't as comfortable with, haven't done as often as we have. So we try to bring them on the journey with us as well to, show them how we can speak to customers and get feedback on an idea or get them to challenge our perspective or challenge the status quo on something that, some stakeholders might believe incredibly strongly, and doing that in a way that's really lean and really quick. And again, like I say, fortunately at Moonpig, people are very open to challenge and people are very forthcoming when they've got new ideas. So yeah, it's pushing on an open door. I guess something else we've been doing besides sort of connecting with our network and more broadly around the business and doing this stuff together is a more formal approach, I suppose, to building out tools and processes for teams to use where they can do this. So tools that help them understand what our user needs are, our user archetypes, and how we think about our users in cohorts, what we can actually build to help drive growth, and what the core needs are of our customers that help unlock those next steps for the business. Like that's really important for us to make sure teams are really aligned and clear on, the core customer problems or core customer opportunities that will help us unlock our next stage of growth as a business, and making sure that's, referenced in all of our company strategy, our company goals, our product strategy. All of this stuff is linked very tightly together in what we use as opportunity solution trees to do that. So talk about the opportunity and then talk about the customer problem that we need to solve to unlock that opportunity. So I guess, yeah, those are probably the two buckets of work we're doing. One is sort of more networking internally with our counterparts in other teams to bring them on the journey. And then the other one is providing the tools, framework, and language so that teams can more easily connect value with customer.
And within those buckets of work, how do we actually do this at Moonpig? What are some of the sort of processes and mechanisms and tools that we actually utilize?
Yeah, it's another really good question. And like I've sort of teased that before, I suppose, like one of the really exciting challenges at Moonpig is, you know, the rate of change is high, and I love that. And it's a very ambitious team. The leadership team are always encouraging us to take risks and validate ideas incredibly quickly. So this mindset and the tooling that I just spoke about and the way of making decisions very quickly that we know are customer centric is really important. Whilst I know this is something that every designer wants, it's my job to ensure that the team have the tools they need to do this. So both technically, so the software, we're looking at a lot at AI tooling as well at the moment, which will be a hot topic around ways that we can supercharge teams to build customer-centric product even faster, but more so behaviorally. So, for example, psychological safety is a big thing. Like if you want to get the best out of a team of people, and that can be your immediate team, or that can be a team like the whole of a company, you need to provide a culture in which everyone can, like I said before, challenge the status quo. They can bring ideas that they have figured out themselves at the weekend from using a competitor or using the website themselves. And, again, Moonpig's one of those companies where everyone here is a customer as well as a recipient, and everyone's got ideas. So that's amazing. And it's how we harness all of that and understand which ideas are worth exploring first.
I know something you're passionate about is hypothesis. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Hypotheses are really important to help teams validate ideas as quickly as possible, and often making sure teams are testing the riskiest assumptions really quickly. So, at Moonpig, we've got a company value of being brave, and keeping it simple. And I find if we can coach teams on creating really strong and opinionated hypothesis, we learn stuff very fast about our customers and their behaviors and what they want. And we're not about playing it safe and we're not about avoiding risk. We're all about, yeah, being brave and testing those big, bold ideas and learning really quickly about our customers. And like I said before, there's a tooling element to that, like what does a great hypothesis look like and how do we create them? But there's also a behavioral element to this as well, like people feeling comfortable testing an idea that might feel counterintuitive at the time, but we don't know, do we? So let's test it and see if it works. So that's something that I think is a huge unlock for us. The other piece sort of related to that in a way is fast feedback mechanisms. So again, I spoke at the start of this about, risk reduction, and one way of reducing risk is learning quicker. So if I can understand if something doesn't work today versus figuring out it doesn't work tomorrow, I've just saved us a whole day waiting to understand if my hypothesis is true or not. And sometimes you can, exacerbate that out over, it might take a team 3 months to understand whether their assumption works or not. And sometimes that's right. You need to leave it a bit longer to learn. But if there are ways that we could get to 80% confidence in 20% of the time, totally let's do that. So things like fake door testing, rapid prototyping and building proof of concepts, we're doing a lot more as a team. Committing to solutions really quickly and putting them in front of customers tomorrow and just asking them questions about it is a really valid way of validating a hypothesis. You don't have to always A/B test absolutely everything, but there are some things where you do. So I think a lot of this again is coaching teams on. Yeah, sure. Many of you have heard the one-way door and two-way door analogy from, I think it was Amazon that might have introduced that, and Jeff Bezos. But one-way door, there's much higher risk. You go through it, you can't come back. So we need to have greater confidence that that's the right thing to do before we do it. Whereas two-way doors, if we go through it and we don't like what we see, we can come back. So in those areas, definitely that rapid iteration, taking bigger risks is somewhere we can play. And then iterating on our learnings. And again, this is something that I've worked at companies before that really struggle with this. And I love the fact that at Moonpig, we really encourage teams to double down on areas that work, but equally really double down on areas that aren't working that they expected to work. Like, let's understand why that's not working. Let's try something new to try and help us understand why it didn't work rather than just the fact that it didn't work. So, for example, and hopefully many of you have tested this out already, we recently launched an awesome handwriting feature on our app platforms. Based on some research we did to understand why customers preferred buying cards offline, we understood that many times it was because they could handwrite the card, and to them that was that extra personal touch. So the team spent lots of time ideating how we could bring this to life, trying to balance what the best UX would be, what we could realistically build, and what we thought would make users love shopping with us so much that they'd come back again and again and again. So they built lots of rapid prototypes and proof of concepts in just a matter of days to put in front of customers and get feedback. They iterated on that feedback, tested ideas again. For example, I recall there was one piece of feedback focusing on customers worrying that the handwriting would look really bad. Like if anyone's like me, my handwriting is absolutely atrocious. So I would worry that my handwriting on the Moonpig app would be equally atrocious. So to help overcome that concern, we decided to front load some examples of what the output would look like. And that helped to really reassure customers that this was going to be a worthwhile investment of time. And ultimately, those rapid iterations and rapid prototypes and proof of concepts helped build confidence around the idea. It de-risked it very quickly versus spending 6 months building something to launch it and realizing then that it didn't work and customers didn't onboard. So, obviously it's now live and we're monitoring lots of metrics and tweaking the experience. So, for example, we realized that customers weren't too sure where to actually find the feature when they were in the editor. There's lots of great features in the editor, from stickers to photos, videos, audio, and also no handwriting. So we found that customers just couldn't find it. So we've done lots of work again, iterating it to make it more visible, introducing an onboarding, even working with marketing to drive some awareness at the top of funnel and through CRM to help. Yeah, I think it's even on our TV adverts now, which is pretty awesome. And I guess finally on all of that, like a lot of the time we encourage teams to follow the data. It's a product design is ultimately quite a scientific based approach in the way that we are informed by data and validate our assumptions and use data to prove whether we were right or wrong. But actually, what I found is sometimes you do actually have to trust your gut. And I think especially in companies like Moonpig, where we are very user centric and have access to lots of data and we can test and learn incredibly quickly. In times where you do want to test something quite drastic and you want to do something completely different to see if it has a complete step change in how customers experience our product, something that nobody's done before, it's very difficult to find data that's going to tell you whether that's right or wrong. And sometimes you do just have to trust your gut. I remember a great quote from Johnny Ive, who suggests that sometimes you have to completely reject reason to innovate. And quite often there'll be people that tell you your idea is bad or it won't work. People that are very experienced in a particular topic will tell you they've tried it before and it didn't work. But if you believe in it, like I tell my teams to keep going, find more insight, find people that know more about that topic, seek feedback from people with more and varied experience. What we find is data does a great job of telling you what's worked in the past, and that's incredibly important. But what it can't do is tell you what will happen in the future. And that's where I really try to encourage my team to be incredibly brave, push their thinking, believing in crazy ideas and, validating those ideas incredibly quickly makes them less crazy because there's less risk associated with them. So that's something that we've tried to introduce sort of design principles to do. And we're doing lots of internal coaching as well on, psychological ideation and thinking more laterally about some of the big problems we're trying to solve as a business.
I really like that quote. I think it sounds really inspiring. I think you could definitely also apply that to the engineering side as well. So thanks for that, Ben.
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree, actually. Like I should have mentioned previously, like tech are a huge counterpart in some of this stuff and being able to build and test proof of concepts incredibly quickly and share that brave mentality is super important. So yeah, super valid.
Let's talk about building that user-centric culture. Ben, what are some of the ways that you and your team are helping to bring this to life at Moonpig?
In terms of growing a user-centric culture, we've done a few things, and this is by no means just something that we own, right? Like I said at the start of this, a user-centric culture doesn't come from one person or one team. It has to be embedded in every decision that everybody makes all the time. Every decision someone makes about our experience ultimately impacts the customer. So yeah, there are lots of things we're trying to do in collaboration with different teams to drive some of that. For example, our research team are clearly a key component in making sure everybody in the business has access to awesome customer insights that really help us unpick some of the biggest challenges. And one thing they've done is built an insight hub, which houses all of the insight across the business for anyone to access. So if you want to know something about Christmas, you can type in Christmas and it will give you all the insight that they've learned from all the research and testing we've done about Christmas card shopping in the past, which is absolutely incredible. We've then done something similar and created a design hub to serve a slightly different purpose. But again, we realized that the product design team, through the very nature of work that they do, have to run lots of workshops and kind of be the glue between lots of different teams. So my team are naturally very good at, facilitating workshops to help understand problems or synthesize customer insight or run ideation sessions to help get really lateral, crazy ideas out of different teams. So we've sort of standardized those processes and created templates, if you like, and put them all in a design hub. So anybody around the business can go in there, they can type in, hypothesis canvas, and they can download our hypothesis canvas and use it within their team. So again, it means we don't have to have a designer embedded in everything that's done, but we can trust that teams have access to tools that will give them pretty decent output regardless. We've also recently created what we're calling a target user experience blueprint. So this is really important because we want something that helps encourage everybody to not only think further into the future, but also think about our whole end-to-end experience. And the blueprint does exactly that. It helps us show how everything every team is doing all comes together to drive the sort of 1+1=3 mentality. So how, a search team and a browse team, if they actually work together on something, it can be even greater than the sum of its parts. So that's been a really useful tool. We've printed it out, stuck it up on the walls in our office. We've created digital artifacts for teams to, feel inspired and proud about the vision and the ambition that we have as a team. And other than that, I think one of the biggest things we do is, how we work with other teams. So I said at the start of this call again, like how collaborative we have to be in nature. So we work very closely with our counterparts all the way across the business to design and influence every part of the experience. That can be from working with those that are designing our card range to our technical infrastructure to our customer service processes and operations, ensuring that we're all learning and aligned together. And again, a nice example I've used on the past that helps articulate this is when I ask people to think about a restaurant. Like, think about the last restaurant you went to and how you felt while you were there and how you felt when you left. Who's responsible for the experience that you had at that restaurant? Is it the chef that cooked the meal? Is it whoever designed the decor and the lighting? Is it bright? Is it dimly lit? Is it like the location of the restaurant? Like, is it in a little quiet village? Is it in the city centre? Like, how does it feel outside? Is it the options on the menu? So not just the food you ate, but the variety of choice. Or is it the price of the food? Different people and different teams are responsible for each of those things. But you're probably all expecting this to be the answer. Like, it's all of them. Everybody there plays a critical part in making decisions that ultimately influence and impact how you feel as the customer going to that restaurant. Even the people that seat you and wait you and how they treat you, like their manner, how they're dressed, that can have a huge influence on how you feel about it. So that's the mentality that I think we have to drive at Moonpig, and that's the value product design brings. It brings all of these different people together to go, we're designing this experience as one. Even though we might structurally be set up in different teams, we have to think as one about this experience. And it's really hard, but it's really rewarding when we do it right.
Thank you very much for that, Ben. That's some extremely valuable insight into design thinking and how it applies at Moonpig. That's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much to Ariella and Ben. We'll see you next time on the Moonpig Tech Podcast.
Moonpig.